This is the March 31st, 2016 meeting of the Oregon City Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. It's now in session. Let's start with introductions. Starting far right. Excuse me, left, sorry. My other right.
Mike Mitchell.
Roger Fowler-Tice.
Blaine Meyer.
Doug Neely.
Bob Burns.
And I'm Dan Tupper. Next item is approval of the minutes. So the minutes were distributed. Any objections to approving the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Everybody say aye.
Aye. That was in order. Everybody say aye.
There you go. Hey, I was told.
Prejudice vote.
Any nays? So I was told this was supposed to be a short meeting, so I'm just trying to direct it.
Okay. You'd be tougher than you were.
The chair rules. Conclusion.
We have decided to delay everything. All right. There are no citizens here tonight, so we will skip the citizen comments on issues not on the agenda. General business, the pickleball request.
Just an update for the committee to let you know. We've talked about this a number of times, but the pickleball group came before you at our last meeting and essentially put together a request and a kind of a proposal to add on to the existing courts that we've been using at Hillendale. I've had myself and John Waverly, our parks manager, have had a follow-up meeting with the representatives from the group, and we kind of pared it down to what exactly we were trying to do in terms of the next level of improvements. And what was determined was they're going to seek grants for resurfacing the courts, so just put a full new surface on the courts, which will extend the life of those for a long time. Restripe it to add additional courts. So if you recall, there's a tennis court side and then there's a basketball court side of that surface. They would restripe it to add some additional courts on what is now the basketball side. So put some striping and lines in, and then they can put up the nets and take them down. So they'll continue to do that. And then moving the basketball hoops, taking the posts out and putting them on the sides. So there'll still be an opportunity to shoot baskets, but it won't be a full court. There'll be just two basketball hoops to shoot at, which I think will not be an issue in terms of use. And so they're pursuing a couple different grants. One is I forgot the community grant program through basically through the Clackamas County Tourism Program, and then they're also going to be seeking a Metro Enhancement Grant through the city. And then I think we're going to, as a department, out of our available funds, we're going to put a little bit of funding towards that to be a match, but we're still kind of working out how much that's going to be. Probably around the $2,000 amount, but they're seeking, I think, in the neighborhood of about $10,000 in grants, so it'd be a good thing. So, and then we've decided to defer. They also wanted to do some additional things, put in some different screening up on the fence that would do some wind blocking and also do some visibility screening. They want to put in some bleachers and some things like that. But we've decided let's just take some nice progressive steps in terms of accomplish what we can, and then we'll keep building on that. So we were both in agreement on that. That would probably be a next phase. So that's kind of where we're at. I would say there's a decent chance of those grants coming through. They're it'd be a pretty strong application for them, and hopefully we'll be able to get that stuff done. And I think we'd be getting that done spring or summer if those grants come through. So they're just going to continue to, I think, increase their activity there and participation, and seems to continue to go well. So
We oftentimes the people seeking the grants get letters of support. I wonder if this body is willing to submit a letter of support for this project to the River Enhancement Board.
Yeah. Is there any objections to doing that? I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good suggestion. Right. I can work with Dan to put together a pretty straightforward letter of support for that. And if the committee's okay, Dan could sign that on your behalf, and I could coordinate that with him.
Because I think we probably have one meeting before those things are due, but I
Yeah.
think they're due in early May. aren't they?
Correct.
Yeah.
One of them, the other one that I mentioned, the community tourism grant has already, I think, been submitted. So we're too late on that one, but it would definitely help for
They
the
did
metro.
something. They did something completely with the community tourism grant. Excuse me. I'm thinking of something else. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
community programs, I think, is
Yeah.
what it's actually called.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll work with Dan to put
Perfect.
together a letter that he can sign off. That's a great idea.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Next item is the possible relocation of the Larry Dahl Monument to city property. Since Sean's not here, I was wondering if we wanted to actually defer this to the next meeting.
Yeah. I heard that their board is they've got some strong feelings on the board of Clackamas Historical Society not to give it up. Now, I probably could understand their viewpoint. They regard that as part of history.
Yeah.
If it turns out that doesn't work out, my suggestion is that I'm sorry he's not here, actually, because if that in fact has been a decision of that board, and one of the members of the Veteran of Foreign Wars had said that he had heard that their board had apparently decided not to take it off their property. I was hoping that maybe the VFW and ourselves, if that's the case, could recommend to the Clackamas Historical Society to actually submit a Metro Enhancement Grant of their own for funding to move that plaque, which is way at the back of the parking lot, move it forward on their own property so it could be seen. I think we all think it would be nice to have been on a city park, but the real point is nobody sees that.
Right.
So if it's okay, I'll try to pursue that. I had to find out whether the board has actually rejected that idea or not, but that was what I was told.
Okay. Well, that would be great. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as I came up. Just about, is there a way we can help them actually highlight the monument, moving it, or
Yeah.
there's some way to offset it just to make it more visible and more obvious to the people pulling into the parking lot. So I think it's a great idea. Any other comments? Or? All right. Next item, the Glen Oak Park grant exploration.
Okay, so I'm going to give you just kind of a quick rundown on this. We are applying for what's called a local government grant program, grant through the State of Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. This is the granting agency that we have successfully secured funding for a few other projects in our city. Those would include we funded projects, the Kanema Children's Park, John Storm Park. We redid the tennis court and the spray park at Rivercrest, and I think there might be one other smaller project that I'm not remembering at the moment. But at any rate, we've been quite successful with that grant program. This is it's available for application every year, and the funding source is from lottery funds. So state lottery funds, a percentage of that goes into this grant program that local and regional park providers can apply for these funds. It's a competitive process, so it's not a guaranteed, but so we are, because of so obviously we've completed the master plan for Glen Oak. Because of its being designated as a priority by the Parks and Rec Committee in our Parks Master Plan, both in the '99 one and then the 2008 update, and then obviously just we're the community pressure and the need is there with the growth and development around that site. That, as far as from my perspective, is definitely our top park development priority over the next couple of years or so. And with that in mind, we have and we do have some funding budgeted in our Parks SDC fund. That's our Parks development money. Most of that money is from system development charges from new housing. So what we are applying for is it's a total of, we're looking at a $2 million project is what we're proposing. We're asking for $500,000 of that. So we're proposing a 3-to-1 match to the granting agency, which is a very strong match proposal. Usually it's a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 proposal. The minimum requirement is 1-to-1. We think that by proposing a much higher level, because we have the funds available, that we could leverage that money, our own money, and potentially, hopefully, be successful in this funding. We think this project meets a lot of the criteria. There's some very specific determined criteria that the state uses for how they award this money, and your project has to fit into that and has to score well within that, and we think it does. So we've identified the pieces of this project that work well with this granting program. So if you look at the, I'm gonna turn on the presentation screen. So if you want to turn your monitors over, this is a duplicate, but I just thought I'd project it in case there's anybody viewing this on video. Bear with me while I turn the screen back on here. I also gave you a hard copy of that simply because I thought that might be something that you want to take with you and keep, and you just continue to refer to possibly. I can also send this to you electronically if you'd like. So we have we've completed. This is the whole master plan. This is kind of everything in the park list, and we talked about this right at about the time that we completed the project, but the total estimated construction price is about $4 million for the entire park if we put everything on the list. So what we're proposing to do with this grant is essentially what we would call a phase 1. And what I've done, working with Kurt Lango Hansen Landscape Architects, that's the firm that did the master plan for us, working with Kurt and his staff, we identified the items that we believed were the most necessary. Like, for example, there's just some infrastructure things that you have to do. We have to do some frontage improvements. That's a city code planning requirement. We need to put in a parking lot, and there's some other infrastructure things in here. So we kind of identified we've got to do those things. And then out of that, with the available budget that we've got, basically roughly $1.5 million, and then adding on to that the $500,000 that we're asking for from the state. What could we do for that $2 million, which is about half of the total estimated cost of the build out, to create a park that would be open, usable, and kind of maximize that money? So these are the items that we are including in that in the application and what we would propose to construct. And so those are all kind of listed. I'll just sort of walk through that quickly, but sorry, I'm working on two computers here. So what the items that we've got proposed on this project are, again, parking, some stormwater swales, and that type of planting thing, those in there. The open lawn area, this is the big lawn. We would be doing that, doing some screening plantings, trees. There's some benches in here, just some natural areas. This is the big kind of wetlands area. Most of the development, and I'll show you another slide. I'm going to flip to it real quick and then go back. This is the sort of the second phase slide. I'm going to go back to that, or I'm going to go to this in a minute, but just going back to the one that we're working on here. So we're not doing most of the wetland stuff that we'll be doing eventually, which the boardwalk and the bridges and so forth are pretty costly items. But we are at least putting in a kind of an overlook area, a little bit of improved frontage to that. We're really not doing anything with the existing house down here. Some corridor vegetation, just some basic stuff. This is where the The creek runs through the property. We're doing a little bit of work with that in this first phase, but not a lot. We would put in the multi-use hard surface court, but not, for example, not putting in the skate park and the bicycle pump track, and I'll show you that again on the next slide, simply because of cost, but at least we'll have a hard court flat surface that if somebody wanted to do something with that, there's a lot of different things you can do. Some open picnic areas, a seat wall, the natural play area, so the children's play area, and that's a big one. Again, trees, all of High School Avenue here, if you can see where I'm pointing out, that will be, our development will trigger our requirement to build our side of the street and also put in parking. So we'll be doing that in the first phase, and unfortunately that takes up a pretty good chunk of that funding, but that's what we would have to do. Picnic shelter, instead of building the permanent restroom, we would propose to put in a little screen and a pad, and that we would just do kind of the portable bathroom type of situation until we could fund the full restroom. And then we do have the dog park included, so this would be Oregon City's first dog park if we're able to fund this. Entry sign, and then just some interpretive seat wall. So those are the items. Those are the main items that we would include in this. The things that get left off and pushed out to a future phase. Again, the big stuff has to do with this wetland area, the boardwalk and bridges and overlooks, and some of those amenities related to that. The master plan calls for some additional parking on this side of the park near the existing house. That would be for parking for maybe events at the house if we were going to use it as a community center. Possibly a Park Coast parking space in there, and some of that type of use. And then some on-street parking on the Glen Oak side, which we would not do in the first phase. I did forget to mention this. This is an entry point from the southeast side of the park that would be included in the first phase. So we would, a lot of the need is because of the housing that is off of the screen here, where I'm kind of moving the pointer around. A lot of people would funnel in this way, and of course, the access point where the parking and the driveway would be. But we are creating an entry point here as well. Again, just some more stuff regarding the creek. Increasing some of the things on the hard surface, actually adding basketball courts and potentially pickleball courts, although we're doing a lot right now, so that might be a different discussion at some point. Doing some additional pathway stuff. I don't know if I mentioned, I think I might have forgotten to mention the big loop pathway through the park would be included in the first phase. And then there's some smaller pathways that would not be included. Again, the bicycle pump track would not be included in the first phase. And
out of curiosity, what is a bicycle pump track?
We talked about that during the master planning process. It's a short track with kind of like with hills and dips that you basically ride a kind of a BMX type bike, or I guess you can do mountain bikes. Blaine, you're probably more of an expert here, but
You can.
mostly it's the
Skateboards.
smaller BMX bikes where you just kind of pump a few times and you kind of ride it quickly around. So it's a short bicycle track that's typically made out of concrete or some type of material that allows you. It's kind of almost. It's sort of almost like an adventure track in a smaller area for BMX type bicycles.
It's neat.
Is that, I don't know, Blaine, can you offer a
No,
better
that's good.
explanation?
There are berms where you can.
Yeah, berms, there you go, that's what I was trying to say.
yeah.
So it's kind of like a
Just skill-
skateboard for bikes?
It is. It's a
Yeah.
skill building, type of a thing.
Yeah, it's a very popular item. That landed in our master plan. So, and then again, one of the biggies here is the permanent restroom facility, which is one of, if not the biggest price tag items in the plan. And so, just for the ability to put in other uses of the park, we're looking at deferring that. Now, if there's an opportunity to do that, what we have talked about is what you can do when you bid these projects is you can do alternate bid items where you're saying, this is our basic package of items that we're looking for, but if the prices are really good and we save money, here are some other items that we would love to build. And so we ask the contractors to bid on those, what are called alternate bid items. We've talked about having the restroom maybe as an alternate bid item so that if we come in way under budget on some of the other items and we're able to do the restroom or we're able to cobble together whatever is needed to do that, because I think that's going to be challenging, not putting in the permanent restroom in this first phasing, but we're still offering a pad and a screen to be able to put in the portable toilet. So that one it's not included, but we're going to kind of play that one by ear a little bit.
We could adopt the bathrooms that they're doing now in San Francisco. You've seen that?
Which ones are those?
It's literally a drain with a little bit of a screen around it. That's it.
I don't know how that. Well, we'll have to think about that.
It's pretty controversial.
Not pretty.
The
Yeah.
Portland, what are the ones in Portland? The Portland Potties or whatever they're. Portland Loos. Thank you. Anyway, that's something I think that restroom is something we're going to be challenged to not put the full restroom in, but again, it comes down to funding and picking, do we want to not build a playground, and if we would we rather have a bathroom or a playground, and that, things like that we'll have to take a look at. So that's just kind of a real quick snapshot. Again, those are all on your handouts. I'm going to turn this off unless anybody wanted to point anything else out on the
couple
screen.
things I have a question
Sure.
about. One, I don't know, of course, Parks got stuck with the Ermitinger house, and now we've got issues with the Buena Vista house, and here we have a house you say we're not going to do anything with. It bothers me that we're taking on these housing structures, and we're not able to maintain them, we're not able to keep them up. And I would, if this is to be used for park and rec purposes, I'd like to really have a feeling what that use is going to be, and if not, do we want to really keep the house? Because they've been a headache for parks.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. And so what the master plan process was done with a lot of public input and feedback, and what we heard through that process from public, and I know a lot of the Parks and Rec Committee members participated or were at those meetings, was that we'd like to try to retain the house and use it as some type of a community building, educational center, possibly do some partnership with the high school. The good news is that at the current time, it is generating revenue. So it's revenue positive, not negative, because we have a renter there.
That money comes into Parks and Rec?
It does. It goes right into it goes right back into our Parks Development Fund because of the connection to that we bought the park. The house came with the park property. We bought it with Park Development Fund, so it goes back into that same fund. So technically the money we're getting from the rental of that house, and until recently the house on the northern part of the property that just got taken out, those were generating funds towards the future development of this park. The house is in pretty good shape, actually, and we could, since we don't have a plan for it here in this first phase, and we need to figure out what that programming would look like, we could continue to rent that house, even though it would be within a park. That would be a little bit unusual, but not that unusual, because that's exactly what we've got at Westerly Lynn Park right now. On the Leland Road side, the house that's there that we own, it technically is in our park, even though that part of the park isn't developed yet. And actually, this part of the park would be pretty light development, if really anything. So I guess what I'm saying is I understand that concern, and I agree with you, Doug, because that is a problem, the maintenance and the upkeep, and if it becomes another money pit of sorts. But it at least for the current time, the rental market is high. It's very high demand, and we have absolutely no problem renting any houses that we own. And I think it will continue to we'll just continue to operate it that way. And then at such time that we get to a phase 2, we can always reconsider things. Again, the idea of a master plan is to get a pretty good idea of what types of things are going to be in the park, but when you get down to kind of programming things and figuring some of those things, those are decisions that can still be made. So my recommendation is that we're probably just going to keep renting it until we make a decision about it, and I think at least for the time being, it doesn't need to be a negative. I think it's a positive thing for us. So.
Go ahead.
As I recall, during the planning phase, there was interest coming from the high school, informal kind of information that they might want to use that for part of their science program. So,
correct. Yeah, we would continue to explore those possible opportunities there, but
maybe they help maintain it if that does come to pass.
Another question I had was, this High School Avenue, is that the one that connects up to the path that goes between the college and the high school? Do you know?
yes, it does. Yeah.
I think it'd be.
It's up
and
here above
it's probably in these plans already, but you've got the walkway there along High School Avenue. It'd be nice if we could tie that into that and into the trail system of the community college to have a kind of nice walking opportunity that could take you all the way through the loop the college has and so forth.
Yeah, and actually that pretty much will exist already, because what we'll have is we'll have the walkways, the pathways in the park, which connect to the sidewalks, which will be built. Actually, this is being built. If you recall, we made an agreement with the school district. They're building their transportation facility up here, and as part of that, because they're using park property, we were going to have to build this road eventually, but because they went first and they needed the road to be done, we negotiated an agreement where they were actually building all of the road plus the sidewalk. So this sidewalk is already going to be built before we even do the park. This will be built as a sidewalk, and then I believe that the high school is being required to build sidewalk up here as well. So it should all connect, if that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then
Scott, just for your information, on the what would be the right side of the street? What's that? North?
Yeah,
Kinda
kind of
north-
northeast. Yeah.
On that side of High School Avenue, there's a sidewalk now that's continuous all the way down to the corner where that trail goes through. I can't
Up
remember
here,
if it's
right?
yeah.
Right here?
I can't remember if it's on the
Yeah.
other side of the street. It is for at least part of the way,
think
but I don't
it's-
know if that's continuous.
Well,
But
I
on
think
that's
it's-
the
right now
side
it's
of the
right
street
here,
where
yeah.
you are. It's continuous
Yeah,
all the way down.
Correct. Yeah. So it already exists, but I guess what I was saying was I'm not sure whether the high school or the school district had to build a sidewalk. I don't recall as part of their new transportation project. Usually you have to do the frontage improvements on your side of the street, which would include a sidewalk. So
And then Scott, wasn't there where you had your pointer up at the top there? That road continues up and goes into the parking lot at the high school, right?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then if you go clear north to that, there's that gravel road that goes to the college. That wasn't that in the presentation today that they received a grant to turn that into more.
Did they get the Metro grant?
I thought they did.
I may have missed that part of the discussion. I didn't catch if that was.
It was mentioned.
They made an application for it.
Yeah,
High school.
I'm not sure, Blaine. I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also, just so everybody knows, there has been some discussion. I don't know if you've heard of the discussion about what's being called the Loader Road extension. That loader on the other side, I'm way off the screen here, but imagine that where Beaver Creek Road would be way out here somewhere. There's Loader Road going, I guess, mostly east, kind of north of the high school area. There's a plan to bring that across Beaver Creek and then continue it and connect it actually into High School Avenue, kind of in, and I'm not sure of how that exactly routes, but that's in our transportation plan. So if that goes forward at some point, that would actually be a road that went all the way through to Beaver Creek and beyond. So, but those would all bring with it pedestrian improvements, which all connects up back to the park. So that kind of goes back to your original point, Doug, is that I actually think this all brings the connectivity together and it connects to the college loop.
And is that wetland currently a wetland? The one there, that's in phase 2 or whatever?
It is, it's designated that way. It's seasonally wet, but I think we're going to look to enhance that area with plantings and that type of thing. So yeah.
Okay.
Any other
So-
questions, comments?
Sorry.
A timing question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we do great, we get the money. What would be our ideal timeline for phase 1, moving dirt?
Yeah, well, so if we do get the grant, and again, we've got, the funds are budgeted on our end, but if we get the grant and put the whole funding package together, there's you sign a grant agreement that says you will complete the project within this amount of time if you're going to use the state funds. And the projected timeline would actually be that so we will know, let me back up just a little bit more on your question, Mike. We're submitting, the grant is actually due at the end of this week, which is tomorrow. We have to turn in most of the information. That's why I'm needing to get the letter of support tonight, and I'll be scanning that and sending it along, and we'll be putting the final package together. We won't know until about midsummer whether we've been successful in the grant. We actually do a presentation to the board for this granting program it's usually in June, I think. But anyway, so we'll find out sometime in July. If we're funded, we'll get moving pretty quickly on. Then we'd have to move to site plan review, final actual construction design stuff. We'd be doing that in the fall and the winter, bidding it, and potentially being under construction by next spring, so 2017, with a completion date being later in that same year, probably about a 6-month to 7-month project. So if everything goes as well as could be, we could be under construction in just over a year from now. If it doesn't go as we hope, then we'll kind of readjust and look at what can we possibly do with just our own funding. But certainly we're gonna see where this grant program goes first.
Thank you.
I would mention that we got some other letters of support. We got a letter of support from the Caulfield Neighborhood Association and the Oregon City Parks Foundation have both written letters of support. So that kind of leads me into the final part of my discussion, which is I sent you out the draft of the letter earlier this week. I put a hard copy of that at your places in case you needed to look at it again. But what I would ask you for tonight, because of the timing of this, we were supposed to be having this conversation a week ago, so we weren't quite as right up against the timeline, but is that you would approve Dan signing this letter of support on your behalf, and if there were any issues with the language, I could redraft it after this meeting, and Dan could sign it. But hopefully, you'd be supportive of that, and we could submit that with our application.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay.
Excellent.
All right.
You can turn your screen back to the other deal there. Thank you for your support on that, and obviously I will keep you posted, and hopefully we'll be talking about moving forward on this project in the summer. So.
Very good. All right. Next item on the agenda, non-smoking policy in parks, the consideration. And I want to say up front, thank you, Scott, for sending out those links. Those are very helpful and very interesting. So,
Welcome.
we'd like to start. Well, I found that, just to get started, I found the links very interesting. I thought it was a very good contrast in different kind of levels of limits within the different parks, different park systems. Personally, I like the idea of parks being smoke-free. I have, going into a park and, especially when my kids were younger and taking them into a park and having to kind of shift locations because of people smoking in the park, that was always kind of an annoyance, but that's just a personal feeling. So,
I think we need to have a policy. I was interested to see how many other cities, counties, the state have smoking or no smoking policies, and I really think we ought to have one that includes the e-cigarettes. There was one that allowed smoking in a person's automobile. I don't think we should even consider something like that. You always hear about the difficulty in how do you administer such a policy or regulation. Well, to me, it's no different than jaywalking or many other regulations that we have. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have it, even though it is difficult to administer. So hopefully we can design something that has all of our approval and move forward on it.
Well, my only thought is if it's going to be hard to police if someone's like just walking through the park, and they're just going from point A to point B and they're smoking. That's going to be hard to police. But if you're at a movie night and it's an event and people are around there and someone lights up, it'd be pretty easy for people who are there to say, the rule is, so please put that out. Or if they're standing around the playground area when kids are playing and, they're just standing there, that would be easier to police. But I think someone walking through the park, like you say, or in their car, is going to be hard to.
With all the iPhones these days, I think it makes it easier. It's impossible to walk down the street without having your picture taken about 40 times.
Social policing.
I mean, I'm supportive of the restriction. Generally, the enforcement of those things become complaint driven. I mean,
Right.
we don't have enough people in code enforcement to enforce many of the codes that we have in the city.
Right.
But the point is that it is a place where families gather and so forth, and particularly, I'm going to say, next to the high school is a major concern I have. It's an easy place for high school kids to go and smoke, and the vast majority of people that have problems quitting smoking are the people that smoke are people that started in high school. So, even if they're written barriers, I think we should have those kind of barriers available to us.
Well, I'm definitely in favor of a ban. The one thing that stopped me when I was reading the information from the other cities, and I think it might have been Salem, and they mentioned that they thought it would or had cost them $5,000 to $10,000 to sign the park properties as non-smoking. And I guess with our budget situation and deferred maintenance that we all know about, I hate to see us spend the money to do that. And can we have a policy and publicize it, and the police department, if necessary, help enforce complaint driven, as Doug said? Would they be able to do that if it's not posted as non-smoking? So, I'm in favor of it, but I'd hate to see us have to spend money to sign it.
I think I can address that because that's an issue that we deal with other park rules and codes. As not every rule is signed at every park, and there are lots of things that are rules but not necessarily posted everywhere. So I think that's a good point about the expense of doing it. What we do hear from our police department code enforcement staff are that it is much easier to enforce and cite people if there's signage. It's much more difficult to have that stand up because somebody could make the argument that it wasn't posted. An example of that we deal with a lot is the no illegal camping issue with transient population. We have been specifically asked by our code enforcement department to post no camping. Camping is not allowed in city parks in certain areas where there tends to be a lot of that goes on, so that it's easier for them to cite and deal with that and move people along. And so I can tell you that we can certainly have a rule on the books, and we can publicize it, and that would be a part of it. I think education is a big part of this. If this were to go forward, we'd want to spread the word about that, and I think you saw in some of that information that I sent you, there was some pretty good publicity that either cities or park provider agencies have done to try to educate their community. So we can do that, and that's part of it. But I do think when it comes down to it is our enforcement folks would ask us to sign the parks that way. Now, that doesn't mean we have to go stick a sign up in every single park that says no smoking, but the ones that probably tend to be the busier parks and that we would have the higher level of issues, we'd probably want to focus on those and then move towards, the kind of move down the list of priority sites, because it would be, we have 37 park sites, everything from big to small and in between, and it would be very expensive to put signs in every park all at once. So that's a consideration that we'd need to think about.
I think that's an excellent point, Scott. And maybe we could start with, over the next few years, but start with the heaviest use, maybe 5 parks a year or something, at least to get the word out, and not try to do them all at one time.
Yeah. And where it becomes problematic, like he says, those are the ones that you can work on.
What about stenciling it instead of putting a sign up right on the path as you walk in?
It might be a possibility. It doesn't tend to work as well. Visibility is kind of a problem depending on where you're coming in from and that type of thing. But it's something we could think about. I don't think it's as effective, though, as just the signage.
Well, I agree with doing this policy, because there's nothing worse than secondhand smoke.
I have a couple questions, if no one else has any others. So, one, it sounds like we're all in support of it. I think we have to work out the nuances of it. I know with me it helps if there's actually some language in front of me, and I'm sure we were talking earlier, you have to vet this with the city attorney and those kinds of things. So I don't know if there's a proposal we would want brought back to the next meeting that we could react to. It seems to be reasonable to me. So if we wanted to go ahead and move forward with that, to investigate this further. So I don't know if anybody else has any other suggestions other than that, but that seems like a logical next step. And the other thing that came to mind is looking for, as far as financing, is I wonder if there's any other grant opportunities that are outside kind of the normal Parks and Rec granting opportunities. There's a lot of money out there for smoker education and smoking cessation and those kinds of things. I mean, the state of Oregon, of course, had the whole smoking settlement, and that went predominantly into healthcare, but I think there's actually smoker education in that as well. I don't know if there's any opportunities there then to be able to sign.
I know the county has a program, Clackamas County, and I don't know what exactly it entails and whether there would be any funding for these types of things, but I would certainly investigate that. So.
Good idea.
If I may just comment on your suggestion to look at some language and that kind of thing. So it sounds to me like, at least from the folks that are here, and I'm kind of speculate that most of the other folks or all of them would be in favor of this as well, going forward. So I think there's some things that we'll need to sort out how we go forward with this process. As you saw with those, and those were just a few examples that I sent you of, I don't know, 6 or 7 maybe agencies. There are numerous agencies. I think I saw a number. It's close to 50 cities and park providers across the state have banned smoking in parks. So that might even be a year-old number, and it might be more now. So, in essence, most parks agencies, I think, are kind of getting on board with this. If they already haven't done so, they're moving towards doing so. So I would concur as well. But I think the issue is how to proceed with that. There are a lot of nuances to these things as to what to include and not include, and I think we were talking offline a little bit about some of that. In cars or not on the grounds at all, or the vaping and all that, and smokeless tobacco, is that part of it or not? These are things I think would, for me to ask our attorney to draft some language, I need to give some specifics and say, we'd want to look at these things. So I guess my question back to the committee would be this: would it make sense to potentially have either one of two things, either form a subcommittee of some of the members that might kind of help draft some language and point it in the right direction, that at least gets to a point where I can hand that off to our city attorney and say, all right, now let's put this into something that works legally, or does the whole committee want to do this? And if so, would it be worth doing an extra work session, an hour before a meeting or whatever it would take? So kind of want to lob that back to you, because I can run with this, but there's so many different angles to this that I would need to know which way to go. And again, when we ask our attorney to do something, if it's the narrower the request, the more focused it is, the less time that gets spent, the less money we spend on our attorney's fees.
So as far as the subcommittee, who's not here tonight?
Well, Mike seemed to be really in favor of this thing.
It doesn't seem like it'd be too much trouble, Scott. I'm sure we could go on the websites of other cities and download examples of their rules, right? And we could look over and come up with.
Yeah,
what
we do have a lot of examples to work with. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, actually, I like the idea of actually the whole group getting together as a work group, just because I think, we're all in support, at least those who are here. But I think maybe in some of the nuances we may differ. So maybe it's better to sit down as a work group and work through it rather than having a few brought back and then having that same discussion then rather than a work group right here at the desk. So
Makes sense.
And I guess we have it in terms of other controls substances that came up in terms of wine at the concerts, and maybe even make it broader. I don't think that the state's current regulations permit people to smoke marijuana in public streets, but that's something that we're going to have to be needing to deal with as well. So just a general controlled substance issue.
Yeah. Well, then there was that. I forget which parks agency it was, but they actually had the allowance in their language to allow specific exceptions in specific functions. So if like we talk about opening up camping, and if the National Tobacco Growers of America want to come and use the camp, well,
bike ride and smoking, go.
Yeah, we might let them smoke that.
It might cost them more for the park space.
It definitely increases the maintenance costs. So
Well, I do know the marijuana stuff. As I understand it, the law already gives us the ability. It already excludes use in any public
That's my
place.
understanding.
Any public place. So
We
we're
should
already
restate it, though.
we're already covered. I mean, we could figure out some way. I guess what you're suggesting is maybe including that in some language or something. But it does. The law already covers us there. So.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is, would the group want to do a work session prior to the next meeting, so we could, and I could bring, I could kind of formulate at least an outline of, here's some of the points we need to try to make some decisions about and get this moving. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do, is take a pretty broad discussion and narrow it to a focused point that I can then move it forward, on kind of the legal side. So anyway, is that the concurrence here? Is the meeting before the meeting, so we can kind of work session it?
So 6 p.m. before the next meeting.
Okay.
What's the date, by the way?
Hold on here. April 28th.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Next item, any other general business?
A couple things to discuss. Wanted to remind everybody that April 23rd, one of the cleanup sites being sponsored by the parks is the Hillendale Park. And I think there's tree planting and other things that are going on there. So I think it'd be nice if we had people from this body there. I'll be there, but to assist in that volunteer operation. I think Jonathan is the person that's kind of in charge of that, as I understand it.
Right. So what you're referring to, I believe, is our Arbor Day event. Yeah.
Right.
Correct. And I would also, I'll be forwarding a notice by email to you about that event as well, to just as a reminder in case you're interested. So
The other thing I wanted to mention, I think I might have mentioned it before, but if so, certain things are advancing on it. The Greater Oregon City Watershed Council is working with the Public Works Department. I think I mentioned Scattering Creek and the cemetery, and that they're looking, not in the current budget cycle, but in the cycle, it'll be, I guess, the 2018-2019 budget cycle, to actually improve that particular area, make it more better for stormwater transition. We had secured a grant where they did a wetland delineation of that area. We're going to be seeking a grant from the Metro Enhancement grant board to seek monies to do engineering work on that, so that when they actually go into their budget cycle, they would actually have a plan to go forward with. And I took a walk down there, and of course it's part of our parks, but as I said, a lot of people scattered ashes in that area where Scattering Creek. I walked down a trail that goes down into some nice wetland areas, some slag ponds and so forth. I don't know if you've ever been down there. And there's some really nice stone-cut memorials where maybe people buried ashes and so forth that are not part of the formal cemetery, but they're very, very well done. And I wasn't even aware of them down there. And so, anyway, I just wanted to comment on what the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council is pursuing.
Blaine?
So a couple of things. Today, the Metro had the Parks meeting at the Museum of Oregon Territory, and the intergovernmental agreement was made and approved for the Riverwalk. So that's a big deal. And also Newell Creek Canyon, the concept plan was approved, and I think this is a real corner turning for Metro. They've been pretty resolute against bicycle trails, and so this is the first project that they're going to put their toe in the water, as Dave Elkin referred to it as. And so I want to commend Metro for doing that. And I think there's an opportunity for the bicycling community to prove that they are advocates and that they will be responsible and help to preserve and enhance the environment. So I'm just proud that we're able to be a part of that here in Oregon City. So also, and I'm pretty sure the third item, I was kind of being distracted by conversations, but I'm pretty sure the third item was the grant that was being given, and I'm almost certain that Kanema Trail was I remember them talking about that. So started a rumor anyway that Kanema Trail got a grant. So let's see. I did have a question, and we don't have to talk about it tonight. But the depot is not part of that whole land area. That is not. I know it's owned by the city, but that's not considered under park maintenance.
It's not owned by the city. The dump site?
No. The land around the depot, the
depot
parking
site.
lot.
Oh, yeah.
I know the city owns it.
It's not a park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not parks.
Because we were out looking at, we received a sign grant, and so we were out on the street there, and there's a nice little grassy area. So someone said, "Well, boy, wouldn't it be great to put some picnic tables there?" So anyway, I thought I'd bring that up. Phil Gagnon from the Ashland Siskiyou Bicycle Club. He wrote a very glowing letter. I don't know if he CC'd you on that, Scott, but
Didn't get a copy of that.
he said thank you. And I assume it's official. I missed the last meeting, so that they would be allowed to get a permit for their.
We were able to work that out under a special event permit. So,
Okay. He was very thankful. So he's moving forward on that. And then the last thing, so April 19th, our Oregon City Business Alliance will be doing a forum. We do a forum every month, but this one will be on the 19th. And it will have the Whitewater Park that's being proposed for the Blue Heron site. And so that'll be Sam Drivo is working on that, and he's flying the engineer who put together the plan for that park. He's flying him out from Colorado, And it's a big deal. I don't know if all of you have seen the plans for that, but if it goes, and we don't know if it will, but if it does, it's huge. There are a number of parks, I think about 15 around the country, and they draw in hundreds of thousands of people. And it'd be really cool, I think, but I'm a little prejudiced. But so that'll be, if you want to learn about that, April 19th. It'll be a full presentation, and then later on that afternoon, he's going to have meetings with tourism in the county and Metro, and so
Where does that meeting take place?
we'll be at the Abernathy Ballroom. And if you're not on the Business Alliance e-blast, let me know if you want to be on that. I'll write your name. Make sure you're on that so you get those.
Bob?
Is this member reports? Is that what we're doing?
No, we're doing
This is general business VT member reports.
we're informal tonight. We'll put the two together.
Yeah, they don't have that as an item, actually, so.
Okay, I'll wait for member reports.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything?
I thought we were doing it.
So,
William's always ahead of
well,
us.
we'll start that here in about 40 seconds. So future agenda items. Do we want to put something on, maybe an update next time about the illegal tree cutting?
Yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. I'll give you an update. I was going to do that under my staff reports, but I mean, it'll be a continued item as there's information to report. But let me, since you asked, let me just talk about that real quick. I don't have much new to report other than tell you that the legal process is going forward and it continues to move. There's some additional evaluation being done by an arborist that is providing a report to the city and to the district attorney that will help kind of with a do a sort of like getting another opinion about the damages and make sure that what we're looking at is aligned with that it's a fair look. So we're waiting for that report. That'll be done in the next couple of weeks. Then there'll be some further examination of that report, and that'll make some decisions will be made. And so as there is anything to report, I'll certainly let the committee know. But there's just nothing else to tell you right now. It's because it's a legal matter and it has potential litigation implications, and there's some different things that we have to be a little bit careful about what we can report publicly or not. So that's why we've been a bit quiet on our end. Is just we're allowing the process to happen. So.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Because I've heard a couple of different things, and one of our elected officials says Waterboard Park is not a park. That is not a city park. And I'm just like, really? I thought, but everybody in the newspaper and everything else calls it, Waterboard Park. So is that just a euphemism, or is that an actual city park?
It's a park. Yeah, I don't know. I can't comment to that because I don't know.
Okay.
I think there.
Who said that in what context?
A lot of maps of what the boundaries of that park were, and so I think that's been the source of the issue.
Okay.
There was discussion around the boundaries adjacent to the Public Works shop property. Mm-hmm. So that's possible that could have been in relation to that discussion that had been happening, but the City Commission has made its determination and determined that the park is the park. And
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
One on the future agenda items, and it's a little early, but I think my recollection is that when the PRAC made a presentation to the City Commission about its goals, but also addressing funding issues, it made it actually before the end of the calendar year. Is that true, or do you remember?
Well, we do an annual report, which we still need to schedule on a commission agenda probably in the next 2 or 3 meetings. So is that
Okay.
what you're referring to? Because
That's what I'm, yeah. And
we've
the
done that every
report.
year. That took place last spring.
Okay, but before they have their budget meeting next year, we've been talking about some things that we'd like to consider to be on that budget piece, and I'm wondering when we should start having that discussion.
Right. So again, there's the annual report that usually the chair and the vice chair will do with the commission. it includes the goals of the commission, of the Parks and Rec Committee. Beyond that, I'm not sure there's been any specific discussion. I mean, you can always, this committee can always relay
Well, the
recommendations.
The thing I mentioned
to the
earlier is
commission.
to have actually signage on our trail system in the parks to indicate where those trails are, so when people are on the street, they can see where they are. Well, that would have to be a budget item.
Yeah.
And that, of course, that won't happen until the next 2-year cycle. But I would like to get that on board before the commission before the budget is passed as an item to be included in the next 2-year budget cycle.
As I recall, that was on our annual goals, I believe, a statement
It is.
Yeah.
regarding that.
Was.
And I just want to make sure the commission gets it before them in
Yeah.
terms of their budget documents.
So that's something that, Dan, as we work towards that presentation to the commission, to do an update that we can discuss about how to approach that.
Yeah, I just need to look and see when the dates of the commission
Yeah.
meeting is.
Yeah, and
commission meeting are.
we think I was supposed to follow up with you and Sean and get that scheduled, so
Yeah.
we'll do that.
Sounds good. All right, anything else? Future agenda? All right, staff reports. Excuse me, member reports. So Bob,
Okay, thank you.
I'm just trying to go too fast. Member reports.
I thought I was left out.
You had your chance.
I bought a copy of the Oregon City News that had a real nice picture of the Girl Scouts, Botterette Park.
Yes.
And if anybody hasn't seen it, I'll leave it. But it's really a nice article. And I'm not sure who was all there, but I was there for a while. It was windy, it was cold, miserable, lousy day. But there were lots of kids, a lot of Girl Scouts, and a lot of people. I assume half of them were parents of the Girl Scouts. And I just hope some of the public not affiliated with the Girl Scout troop were also there. Anyway, that was a nice event. The Willamette Falls program last night, I was just totally amazed at the turnout. Just even had a hard place to park within 2 or 3 blocks away from the Abernathy Center. And I was really impressed. They had a little kids table. They were all involved in drawing pictures and cutting things out, and they were having a good time. I was also amazed to see an open bar. I've never seen a bar in a public meeting like that, so I wasn't opposed to it. I just thought I'd mention it. I walked in, there wasn't a soul in there, and I said, "What's going on here?" And they said, "What do you want to drink?" I said, "What do you have?" "Well, we have." They told me what they had, and I said, "Wow, I'll have a soft drink, but thank you very much." And I hope that Scott might have a comment or two about the May election sometime before we leave tonight on Westerland Park, the election in May. So those are my comments.
I was impressed to see a huge bicycle group come out from Portland to that event. It was about 20, 30 bikes out front.
Yeah, there were bikes all over the
Yeah,
place.
it was pretty impressive.
All right. Doug?
I did it.
I'm done.
Roger?
Okay. Well, okay, so the Pioneer Center items, Pioneer Center was closed last week for maintenance and cleaning. 3 trees have been removed. Don't get excited. In anticipation of the parking lot repairs, because they were heaving up the asphalt, we will replant twice as many trees in the fall to compensate for the trees that were removed. Other maintenance and cleaning that happened last week: carpet and furniture were cleaned, the paint was touched up for the whole building, the pool table is repaired, bathroom stalls were repaired, and then we cleaned out the cupboards, and the kitchen equipment was repaired and cleaned. I have a report for the Library Art Committee update. The committee met with glass artist John Anderson on the 14th of March. We discussed the need to have a plaque somewhere, this was before John got there, somewhere in the new lobby for the artist. John brought a scale model of the new lobby, which included the suspended artwork, which will hang about 9 feet 6 inches off the floor or ground. A light was shined inside the model to give an idea how the halogen spotlights would throw colors off the glass through the glass onto the surrounding lobby walls and ceiling. The artwork is scheduled to be finished well before the lobby is finished. So the committee authorized John to proceed with constructing the finished artwork. The committee also discussed the Frit Art Glass project, and it was decided because of time and cost factors, a vinyl coating will be used for the opaque design on the windows. I guess Sunnyside has this in their library, and I haven't seen it yet, but it's supposed to look pretty good. The committee requests to see how the Frit design would look during the installation of the windows, so we can get an idea of what it would look, whether we liked it or not. But we were told this was not possible due to the safety issues with the ongoing construction. The library addition is scheduled to open October of 2016. So,
Mike?
Just kept writing more things as other people were talking, but they're not too long. First off, Roger, you said halogen. Don't do that. Let me help you with that. Whoever's doing that.
You want to come to our meeting?
Don't want to use halogen bulbs. We'll talk.
Okay.
On the Riverwalk, just kind of for the interest of the group, because of the work that I'm in, I read a lot of trade magazines having to do with architecture and projects around the world, and there is not a cutting edge, especially municipal, large-scale project, it seems like anywhere in the world that Snøhetta is not in the middle of. Mm-hmm. And they're one of the consultant groups on the Riverwalk, and I'm 100% confident that that's going to be world-class, because those folks don't do anything but world-class. They are amazing. The epidemic that we're having of tree cutting, it was pretty interesting. I read the Oregon City News, and there was a story about some other tree cutting that happened, and I set the paper down and got the dog and stepped outside, and my next door neighbor had topped his street trees.
Okay. No, pruned. Pruned is
Pruned. Viciously pruned. Bob mentioned the Girl Scout thing, and this ties also in a little bit with our foundation meeting Tuesday night. And what I hope we can take from that is be able to expand and adopt a park idea with service groups, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, neighborhood associations, whatever. And I know that's something that the foundation is going to try to push for. The other thing I'd just like to publicly thank Jonathan Waverly. He came to our foundation meeting Tuesday night on his own time, despite the fact that they're in their really busy season trying to get the parks in shape. And we had a great session with him on projects that the foundation could get involved in, and his knowledge was really helpful. So we thanked him then, and Scott, I hope you'll thank him again, and now we've got it on the record.
Thank you.
He did a great job. And I guess the one thing that surprised me, I mean, I knew vandalism was a problem, but when he started talking about all the time and money and energy that they have to spend to deal with vandalism, things like if a restroom building gets left open overnight, there are people camping in it the next day. Those kind of it was amazing the time and energy that we're having to spend. It's such a waste. So anyway, that's it.
Mike, I have a question.
Yeah.
Dan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does one become a member of the Oregon City Parks Foundation? I see the dues have been broadcast.
Yeah.
Bring your wallet.
Yeah, that's right. Bring your $10 and we get your email contact information, and we have a membership card for you, and you're in.
Did you get an extra,
There's no hazing, there's no prerequisites, no requirements.
for every donation of $1,000, you get an extra vote on the board?
That's right.
I think that we could probably do something like that. I'm sure there's a price.
Tell me how we do that. Just over the email? Is that what you're saying?
Pardon?
What's the process for signing up?
You
Well,
have
the
$10?
The
Who I give
next
the money to? Who gives me the card?
depends on whichever one of us you see, but we will have a booth at the farmers market on, what's the date?
Well, at least this Saturday is the first.
Well, we're tentatively,
Right.
well, it'll be next weekend, right? Well, there's
It's
one
coming.
this weekend.
Yeah, this coming weekend.
Not this
first.
weekend, not this weekend,
It's the
it'll be the
6th
next
week.
one.
16.
2 weeks.
We'll be at the farmer's market on April 16th?
That's
a possibility.
barring weather.
Weather, yeah.
No, you gotta be at the park on April 6th. Oh, no, that's different.
That's the
Never
29th.
mind. Excuse me, it's a different Saturday.
But
We'll
if
see.
you stand,
One last
in
thing.
front of William Gifford long enough, you'll be able to give him your $10.
There you go.
He'll get it from you.
Just say one thing that came to mind, that, this does have relevance to the parks, but we met. The depot is going forward, and there are several homeless people that sleep there at night, and we're always having to call the police to come get them out. And so we thought, well, let's try and be redemptive and see if we come up with some solutions. So we met with Chris Wadsworth, the PIO from the police department, and Terry Gant from My Father's Heart, and then Tom and Shelley Batty and myself. And we talked about, are there any solutions? And there are solutions for the daytime that we can send them over to Father's Heart. They've got all kinds of services there for the homeless people. And she said there are about 300 in Oregon City. But we said, nighttime is the problem because they all kind of camp out at the depot, or there's 3 or 4 of them. And there's no real solution. And then today at the Metro Parks meeting, Paul Edgar was talking about some people he's working with to try and get a solution to the homeless situation in Oregon City. So I don't know if it's something that our committee probably isn't going to be involved in, but certainly should be aware of. But some kind of a tent city, and I mentioned that to one person. They said, "Oh, no," So we'll see how that goes. But I do think we need to deal with it, especially as tourism continues and continues to grow. Seems like the homeless problem isn't going to go away, so we might as well find a way to deal with it.
Yeah. I don't have anything to report, but I do have one quick question about with the Girl Scouts. Do we know if or when they're going to come back and then report out what they let us know? What I know part of what they were doing was actually surveying the attendees about what they would like to see happen at La Tourette Park. It'd be nice to have them back, also to thank them for what they did. But
I will pass that along. I'm currently trying to get a meeting coordinated with my schedule and when they can meet. So the couple of the parents that are the sort of the leaders of that group that had been here before are coordinating with me right now. I think we're going to meet next week and then kind of talk about, all right, here's the information. How do we take this forward? I will suggest to them that they would come back to this committee and give a kind of a follow up and then be recognized. So
yeah,
That'd be great.
yeah.
all right,
Great
thank
idea.
you. All right, staff reports. The recreation update.
Recreation updates, those are the written updates are sent out to you each month. Again, that's just noted on the agenda for information, but if you have any questions on those ever, feel free to let us know. Again, those are just that's just to give you an idea of all the stuff that's going on. A couple other things. It's already been mentioned, but the Willamette Falls Legacy Project Riverwalk design public event yesterday that took place went very well. There's an estimate for those of you that went. When you came in the front door, you noted everybody it's a pretty high tech deal. There was a group of volunteers with iPads tracking the number of people that came in, but also trying to get people to sign up for the email lists, and so that you could be notified of the information. It was a really neat deal. But we did get an estimated attendance count, and that number is 725, which is really good. I think that's and there's some follow-up meetings with the architects and the consultant group that you were just talking about, Mike. That are taking place tomorrow that I'm going to be participating in. Some kind of wrapping up of that event, and then of course moving forward in the design process. So things are really moving along well. I was going to mention the La Tourette Park Girl Scout party, but that's already been mentioned, and I was amazed at the attendance despite the terrible weather. It was one of the worst weather days we'd had in a long time. But kudos to that group of young ladies. They did a super great job. Bob asked me to report about the Wesleyland Park election issue, and what I can tell you is All the paperwork has been filed. It's going to be on the ballot. It's I believe it's May 19th. That date is not right in front of me, but I think that's the date. It's the primary election date. So this Westland Park question will be on there. We have also, you're required to submit an explanatory statement when you submit your ballot measure to the county, and we have submitted that. I think it would probably be good if I emailed that around to all of you so you had that information. It's you'll recall we had a resolution that the commission had to pass, and you all were actually kind of weighing in on that. I had sent that draft, and then there were some comments. It's the explanatory statement is basically kind of extrapolated a lot of that information and put it into sort of a narrative form. So you've probably seen kind of the meat of that discussion already in writing. But I'll send you the explanatory statement that will be on the ballot, so you'll have that information at hand. And then we're putting information out to the community. We can't, as staff, I cannot advocate for or against a ballot measure once it's on the ballot, and we've got a ballot title and everything now, so I have to be a little bit careful about that. But I can provide information. You are citizens, so you can certainly provide information, and you can share your opinions about things. But I'll make sure you've got that info. I'm going to be talking to some neighborhood associations specifically about that topic to make sure that people are aware of that and understand that. But if you have any groups that are interested in that conversation before the election or need to have that information provided, let me know, and I can work with you on that. So
We could submit as long as we don't use city funds for it, we could and we pay for it ourselves. We could submit a letter of support to go into the ballot.
yeah, I think I don't
So
know.
maybe some of us should sit down and think about it, because I don't think this is the appropriate
Right.
venue for it.
Yeah, so I can't really get into that conversation with you, but yeah, it's certainly something you could talk about. I'm not sure what the date to submit that is, but it's getting close. I can tell you that. So
Yeah. That's true. We should be getting the voters pamphlet here in about
Yeah.
3 weeks, 2 to 3
getting
weeks.
close. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And that's all. That's all I've got.
Could you email the ballot measure number, or do you have it already?
I'll send that to you.
Okay.
Hmm.
Perfect.
I will send that with the explanatory statement.
All right.
That's all I've got for my report.
All right. Well, it's not 10 o'clock. I'm happy.
It's a new record.
It's in. No. Next scheduled meeting is April 28th. Remember, we'll be meeting at 6 rather than 7 that night because of the work group. And this meeting is adjourned.